Most fish keepers believe regular water changes are essential for healthy fish. But in a shrimp tank, that logic can quietly kill your colony. Here's the truth. Every time you carry out a large water change on your shrimp tank, you could be undoing the very stability that they rely on. In the next few minutes, I will show you exactly when you should do a water change and when you absolutely should not. Because near Caridina shrimp, they don't need freshness, they need stability. And the difference between those two ideas, that's where most shrimp keepers are going wrong. You've probably done it yourself. You've looked at your tank, thought, well, it looks fine, but I better carry out my weekly water change. You finish, you sit back, you look at the tank and you think, why are my shrimp acting so strange? They hide, they dart around the tank looking panicked. The next morning you look in and some of them aren't moving and actually they've died. Shrimp can be sensitive to change, especially in water chemistry. The water temperature, the pH, the KH, even the TDS, they all shift the minute you start adding fresh water. And for shrimp that have evolved to live in slow moving streams where the water barely fluctuates day to day, that kind of shift is total chaos. So let's start with the real question. When is a water change actually the right thing to do? A few years ago, I had what I would describe as the perfect shrimp tank. Lush plants, perfect lighting, 300 or 400 cherry shrimp. The tank was perfect. Then one day I was reading that you should carry out large water changes on your shrimp tank. So I did. I drained that tank down by more than 50% and filled it back up. A few days later, I realized I was losing shrimp. One here, one there, 5, 10, 20. Almost the entire colony collapsed within a few days. Naturally, I quickly tested the water. The ammonia was 0, the nitrite was 0, and the nitrates weren't very high at all. The tank seemed fine. The problem? I had destroyed the very stability the shrimp relied on. And that is when it clicked. Shrimp don't die because the water's dirty. They die because the water suddenly changed. There are actually only a few good reasons to carry out a water change on your shrimp tank. Nitrates build up naturally over time in your shrimp tank thanks to shrimp waste and uneaten food decomposing. Shrimp can tolerate surprisingly high levels of nitrates, but when those levels get too high, it can start to prove toxic to your shrimp. Now, I know there are plenty of videos out there, plenty of Facebook posts or blog articles written that say the nitrates in your tank must not go above 40, they must not go above 20, they must not go above 0 or everything will die. And that simply isn't true. But here's the key. Don't guess, test. Use a reliable test kit like these Escher test strips to get an accurate number. If your nitrates are hitting 150 or 200 ppm, then it's time to think about carrying out a 10 or 20% water change. Don't do a sudden 50% change. Don't dump a load of cold water into your tank. Take your time. And if your nitrates are creeping up that high on a regular basis, consider other ways to control them, like adding more live plants. Live plants literally suck nitrates out of the water as they grow, reducing the needs for water changes. Floating plants like salvinia or water lettuce are nitrate vacuums. Having them in your shrimp tank can almost eradicate the need for any water changes. And if you live in the UK, you can get salvinia at an amazing price by visiting my website, shrimpkeeper.co.uk. If you see the whole colony swimming around like crazy, or they're all up at the surface as if they're trying to get out the tank, or maybe they've stopped eating altogether, that's the shrimp equivalent of shouting, "Something's wrong." Before doing anything, test for the basics. Test for ammonia, test for nitrite, test for nitrate. If they're all fine, then could you have overfed the shrimp, or could you have added a contaminant to the water on your hands when you were doing other maintenance? If your shrimp are acting weird, if your shrimp have changed their behavior, then consider carrying out a small 10 or maybe 20% water change to see if you can dilute whatever is in the water that's causing the problem. If you've had a number of sudden deaths of your shrimp and you can't pinpoint why, then again, maybe this is the time to carry out a small 10 or 20% water change. But again, gentle is everything. The key is small water changes. Carrying out a large water change, changing 50% of your shrimp tank water can just compound the problem and lead to more shrimp deaths. Remember, you're not trying to reset your tank, you're just trying to stabilize it. So at this stage, I think we all agree, water changes have their place. There are times you have to carry out a water change. So now let's talk about the real problem. The every week because the calendar says so water change. The I always change water on a Saturday morning. It's these water changes that could be killing your shrimp. That habit can work in a fish tank because fish produce large quantities of waste. If you're keeping 50, 60, 70 guppies, if you're keeping 4 large goldfish, if you've got half a dozen Oscars, you really do need to carry out a large water change every single week. Otherwise, the nitrates in those tanks will build quickly and kill your fish. But a shrimp tanks should be self-balancing ecosystems. Biofilm, moss, plants, bacteria, they're microscopic workers recycling waste into usable compounds. Every time you carry out a large water change, it's like firing half of those workers without warning. So let's break down why a large water change is so bad. Let's break down the effects it has on your shrimp. And the first of these is temperature shock. A sudden shift in temperature can send your shrimp into an early molt. Their shells can harden too quickly and they can get stuck in that molt and they perish. pH swings. If the fresh water that you're adding has a different pH to your tank water, then it can swing by a point or two in a few seconds. And for shrimp, that can prove fatal. A GH or a KH shift. GH and KH control mineral balance. They control buffering in your shrimp tank. A sudden change in KH or GH can affect the shrimp's osmoregulation. That's how they maintain internal salt balance. And then of course, there's biofilm loss. If you drain your tank down by 50% and you're not quick at filling it back up, then the biofilm, the microscopic life that's now exposed to the air, can quickly die off. This can have a massive effect on the amount of available food for your shrimp. You might not see it, but to them, it's like their favorite supermarket disappeared overnight. So if you're not going to do water changes, then what should you do to keep your shrimp tank healthy? Well, you should top off, but only for evaporation. Control feeding. Air on underfeeding slightly to keep nitrates low naturally. Add lots of plants. Mosses, floaters, and rooted plants absorb waste better than any filter. And vacuum the substrate only when necessary. A turkey baster can be used for spot cleaning if necessary. Do these things and you may never need to carry out another major water change. I now have a shrimp tank that hasn't had a water change in over a year. It's heavily planted, I control feeding, and I just top up for evaporation whenever I need to. And the population of shrimp explodes. I see buried shrimp constantly. The water is crystal clear and the nitrates max out at about 50 ppm. And that really is because I stopped trying to control the environment and just trusted it. Essentially, you need to stop being a shrimp keeper and start being an ecosystem manager. So before you carry out your next water change, follow this simple plan. Step 1, test before you touch. Always confirm nitrates, GH, KH, and pH. Step 2, only change water when you see a problem. Very high nitrates, weird behavior, or unexplained losses. Step 3, keep it gentle, 10 to 20%, and try and match the parameters of your new water to your existing tank water when possible. Step 4, focus on top-offs and plant growth instead of resets. Step 5, if shrimp are eating, breeding, and behaving normally, resist the urge to interfere. Stability is your best friend. Think of it this way, every water change is a risk. Just make sure it's a necessary one.